If you were to experience something, but couldn't understand or express the experience with words, then of course, you wouldn't be able to accurately describe the experience to other people. Thus, no one else would ever be able to know what you experienced. If this were true though, would that also mean that neither could you? Ludwig Wittgenstein was a 20th century Austrian-British philosopher known for his uniquely innovative and often confusing ideas regarding the nature of language, internal experience, and the relationship between them. To help illustrate this relationship, Wittgenstein proposed the following metaphorical thought experiment in his primary later book, Philosophical Investigations, in which he suggested that we imagine a group of people. Each person has a box. Inside each box, there is a thing that everyone calls a beetle. However, in the context of this thought experiment, no one is allowed to look inside anyone else's box. Everyone can only look inside their own, and they're only allowed to talk about what's inside their box. So, the question is, can anyone ever know if anyone else actually has a beetle in their box? And can anyone know what anyone else's beetle actually looks like if they do? Sure, everyone can describe what's in their box, but they can, of course, only talk using words that everyone shares and understands regarding what's in their box, which in this case is beetle. According to Wittgenstein, though, the thing inside the box cannot be meaningfully talked about using the word beetle because no one can ever confirm what anyone means by beetle. As a result, the word beetle can only mean the thing that's in the box, but doesn't and can't necessarily describe the thing that's actually in anyone's box. Wittgenstein uses this beetle analogy to suggest that the felt states and sensations that occur in a person's mind, things like smell, pain, love, happiness, sadness, and so on, are things that no one can ever communicate sufficiently enough to share and reveal their experience of to others. I can never see your beetle, and you can never see mine. When we attempt to think and communicate about the beetle, though, the word has to be a word that everyone understands or can be taught for the word to have any meaning. According to Wittgenstein and many others, language is entirely social. This theory is known as the private language argument, which proposes that no language can be understandable if it is solely to one individual. Rather, language is only formed through shared use amongst the community of others. Thus, the sensation of something might exist exclusively to oneself, but it can never be understood in terms of language exclusively to oneself. Meaning, we can never know if anyone experiences anything the same way we experience it, even if everyone talks about it with the same words. We can only assume. Arguably, trying to rationalize, communicate, and comprehend the mental experience of a sensation as it actually is becomes inconceivable after a certain point. For example, one could say that fresh-cut grass smells good, but when asked what it smells like, they would have to go on to say things like, it smells natural, or it smells like the season of spring. If then asked what that smells like, perhaps if one tried hard enough, they could come up with a few other smells to compare it to, but they would eventually and inevitably reach the limits of language. There would be a final question of what it smells like that would have no answer, a sensation beyond words that no one besides the smeller could know for sure what is like. Whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent. Wittgenstein writes when referring to the notion of subjective experience and that which exceeds language and logical understanding. Beyond the suggestions of language and shared meaning, arguably what is most thought-provoking about all of this is the notion that we can never know what it feels like to be anyone else other than ourselves. We can never know what the world might look, taste, smell, sound, and feel like from outside our own head. We can never verify what anyone else's color blue looks like, or what anyone else's punch in the arm feels like, or what anyone else's sense of love or happiness is like. We are all locked inside our minds, yelling out to each other in an attempt to find out, but never capable of entering anyone else's to find out for sure. Even if the framework, structure, and wiring of each of our brains are mostly identical, the unknowable conscious psychological layer on top of it all transmutes the experience of neurological occurrences into something abstract, distanced enough from the measurable and communicable to ever know exactly what any of it is, where it comes from, and how it might change in different heads. Ultimately, no matter any philosophical stance or scientific theory, it is fair to argue that at a minimum, no one can or will ever know what it means to have navigated and experienced this universe in the way that you have and will. Each moment that you experience a particular sense or image of the world with your particular conditions of consciousness is forever yours exclusively, withholding the mystery of what it means to actually be you for all of eternity. Perhaps we all feel and experience in nearly identical ways, or perhaps we all feel and experience in very dissimilar ways. Your version of blue, your sensation of pain, your experience of love could perhaps be its only version of blue, its only version of pain, and its only version of love to ever exist in the entire universe. The point is, we don't know, because each of us holds the answer that no one else can ever access.